Good morning everyone. Basa na tayo ng Bible guys. Pang May 11 na natin. John chapter 2 verse 1 to 25. Buong chapter 2 ng John. And 2 Kings chapter 13 and chapter 14. Dito muna tayo sa John. Basa. Jesus turns water into wine. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Dear woman, why do you involve me?" Yung nanay niya, di ba si Mama Mary? Tapos sabi niya, "Dear woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My time has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He didn't realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink, but you have saved the best till now." So verse 11 ng John chapter 2. This is the first of his miraculous. Yan ang pinakauna niyang yung pinakauna niyang ginawang miraculous signs. Sorry. This is the first of his miraculous signs Jesus performed at Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. So verse 12, Jesus encounters belief and unbelief from the people. Jesus clears the temple. Yun ang title niya, ha? Sira na yung relo ko talaga. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts he found men selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables, exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove out from the temple area both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get this out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market?" Pero alam niyo guys, ngayon, sa panahon ngayon, kung saan banda yung simbahan, nandoon din yung ganitong market. Ibig sabihin, walking distance lang siya. Mga talipapa, ganyan. Kasi kung saan yung maraming tao, syempre doon yung commercial, diba? Pero basta huwag lang sa may simbahan dapat. Kasi hindi mo talaga maiwasan yung maraming nagtitinda sa tabi ng simbahan. Pero dito ayaw nga niya, Kalagay, "Get this out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market?" Sa verse 17, his disciples remember that it is written, zeal for your house will consume me. Then the Jews demanded of him, what miraculous sign can you show us up? Can you show us to prove your authority to do all this? Jesus answered them, destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. Saan ka pa? The Jews replied, ito pala yung inano sa kanya dati. Yung ginawa sa kanyang, di ba naalala niyo yung pinako siya sa cross tapos sabi ng mga tao, kaya niyang erase yung temple in 3 days. Di ba pinagtatawanan siya doon nung pinako siya sa cross. Pero talaga palang sinabi niya dito yun. Sa verse 19 ng John 2. Jesus answered them, destroy the temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. The Jews replied, it has taken 40 years to build this temple and you are going to raise it in 3 days? But the temple he had spoken of was his body. Oh, ito yung pinako siya sa cross, namatay tapos inilibing tapos sa ikatlong araw na buhay, di ba? So yun. Yun pala yung ibig sabihin niya ng temple. Hindi yung literal na church, guys. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled that he had said. Then they believed the scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many people saw the miraculous signs he was doing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all men. He did not need man's testimony about man, for he knew what was in a man. So, dito na tayo sa punta na tayo sa punta na tayo sa 2 Kings chapter 13 and chapter 14. 13-14 May 11. Kita mo guys, May 2 lang tayo ngayon. May 11 na yung binabasa natin. Saan ka pa? May 11. 2021. So, chapter 13. Chapter 14. Ay, dito. Basa. Jehoahaz, king of Israel. In the 23rd year of Joash, son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 17 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord by following the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, and he did not turn away from them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and for a long time he kept them under the power of Hazael, king of Aram, and Ben-Hadad his son. Then Jehoahaz sought the Lord's favor, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. The Lord provided a deliverer for Israel, and they escaped from the power of Aram. Excuse me. Sana tayo. So, balikan natin yung verse 4 ng 2 Kings chapter 13. Then Jehoahaz sought the Lord favor, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. The Lord provided a deliverer for Israel, and they escaped from the power of Aram. So the Israelites lived in their own homes as they had before. But they did not turn away from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. They continued in them. Also the Asherah pole remained standing in Samaria. Nothing had been left of the army of Jehoahaz except 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers, for the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust racing time. Hirap na hirap talaga ako sa magbasa, guys. Andyan yung mga hindrances natin. Pumipiyok-piyok. Kaya pag bagong gising ka talaga, mga ngapa ka. Verse 7. Nothing had been left of the army of Jehoahaz except 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers, for the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust of at tracing time. Verse 8. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoahaz, all he did and his achievements are they written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. Jehoahaz rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria. Ba't ganun yung mga pangalan nila? Yung isa, Jehoahaz, and isa naman, Jehos. Malilito ka talaga, guys. Tingnan mo. Jhoahaz. Tapos yung isa namang isa. Jehoash. Diba? Pero magkaibang tao siya kasi sa spelling lang sila magkakaiba ng pangalan. And Jehoash, his son, succeeded him as king. So alam ko na kung saan kinuha yung pangalan ng anak. Doon sa tatay, iniba lang ng spelling. Kahit pala nung araw, no? Jehoash, king of Israel, yung anak ni Jehoahaz. Ito naman, Jehoash. In the 37th year of Joash. Ay, naku, ewan ko sa inyo mga pangalan. Magkahawig-hawig kasi. Joash naman ito. In the 37th year, sa verse 10 ng chapter 13, king of Judah. In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz. Please check your internet. Wala nga akong net. Became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 16 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and did not turn away from any of sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He continued in them. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash, all he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoash rested with his fathers, and Jeroboam succeeded him on the throne. Jehoash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Now Elisha was suffering from the illness. Ito yung, di ba yung yung power ni Elijah na punta kay Elisha na, yung prophet na. Now Elisha was suffering from the illness from which he died. Jehoash, king of Israel, went down to see him and wept over him. My father, he cried, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. Elisha said, get the bow and some arrows, and he did so. Take the bow in your hands, he said to the king of Israel. When he had taken it, Elisha put his hands on the king's hands. Open the east window, he said, and he opened it. Shoot, Elisha said, and he shot. The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Aram, Elisha declared. You will completely destroy the Arameans at Epic. Then he said, take the arrows, and the king took them. Elisha told him, strike the ground. He struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed it. But now you will defeat it only 3 times. Elisha died and was buried. Now Moabite traders used to enter the country every spring. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man. So verse 21, guys. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man, suddenly they saw a band of raiders, so they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came to life. Ala, ang galing! Nabuhay ulit. And stood up on his feet. Hazael, king of Aram, oppressed Israel throughout the reign of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them and had compassion and showed concern for them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To this day he had been unwilling to destroy them or banish them from his presence. Hazael, king of Aram, died, and Ben-Hadad, his son, succeeded him as king. Then Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns he had taken in battle from his father Jehoahaz. 3 times Jehoash. Natatawa talaga ako sa mga pangalan. Grabe naman. And so he recovered the Israelite towns. Wala ba yung pangalan na lang ng mga katulad namin para madaling bigkasin? Amaziah, king of Judah. Sa chapter 14 na tayo. In the 2nd year of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king. Ang aga, guys. Ang babata nila maging king. And he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. Ay, wala ka kay ano. Sino ba yung 7 years old lang? Naging king na. Si Joash. Si Joash, ano lang siya, 7 years old lang nung maging king. Basahin niyo yung chapter 11, verse 21. Ng talking, siyempre. Alangan. He became king and he reigned. Mas maaga ang tatay mo naging si Amaziah, king of Joash, ay son of Joash pala yun. Eh, mas maaga yung tatay niya naging king. 7 years old lang yung tatay niya. Eh, siya 25. Ay, yung dyan ko. Umpisa na. Alam, malapit na pala tayo mag-work. Hindi pa tayo tapos. King and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoaddan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not as his father David had done. In everything he followed the example of his father Joash. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. After the kingdom was firmly in his grasp, he executed the officials who had murdered his father the king. Yet he did not put the sons of the assassins to death, in accordance with what is written in the book of the law of Moses, where the Lord commanded, Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. It is to die for his own sins. Oh, gawin natin description to. Yung nasa lubok ni Moses, chapter 6. Chapter 6. Chapter 14, verse 6. Gawin natin description. So, verse 7. He was the one who defeated 10,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt and captured Selah and battled, calling it Jokthel, the name it has to this day. So, hanggang ngayon. Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, son of Jehoahash, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, with a challenge, Come meet me face to face. But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, Hazael in Lebanon sent a message to Cedar in Lebanon, Give your daughter to my son in marriage. Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You have indeed defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant. Glory in your victory, but stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, and that of Judah also? Amaziah, however, would not listen to Jehoash, king of Israel, attack. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth-Shemesh in Judah. Judah has routed. Wait lang at pumipiyok na tayo. Sorry. Verse 12. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah. Alam niyo guys, yung mga king na to, magkakamag-anak yun eh. Kasi Judah, Israel, tapos ano pa ba? Eh, di ba mga anak yan ni mga anak yan ni Jacob? Kumbaga saan yung roots nila, magkakamag-anak, magkakapatid yung mga yan. Tapos mag-aaway-aaway. Di ba? Nangangalay na yung pa ako. So, sa verse 12 na tayo. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth-Shemesh. Then Jehoash went to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. About 600 feet long, he took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the royal palace. He also took hostages and returned to Samaria. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash, what he did, and his achievements, including his war. Achievements pala yung war. Magigira na. Achievements pa yun. Bihira. Ang dami kayang namamatay nung araw guys, no? Tapos pero ang dami-dami pa rin natin ngayon hanggang ngayon. Including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoash rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. and Jeroboam his son succeeded him as king. Amaziah son of Joash king of Judah lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash son of Jehoahaz king of Israel. So mula nang namatay yung tatay niya, 15 years pa. Oh, kulog na. Gawin yung sounds yun sa meditation, guys. Alam mo yung garog. Ganun ba? Di ba? Pero tiyan lang yun, ha. Walang ibig sabihin yun. Pag inom ka ng inom ng tubig, ganyan talaga. Tinutunaw niya yung kung ano-ano sa tiyan mo. Tapos mamaya, mawala na yan. And Jeroboam his son succeeded him as king. Dito tayo sa verse 17 ng chapter 14. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? They conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried in Jerusalem with his fathers in the city of David. Then all the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of mas bata rin to. Then all the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. Pabata ng pabata. Pero doon pa rin ako kay Joash. 7 years old lang. He was the one who rebuilt Elath and restored it to Judah after Amaziah rested with his fathers. Jeroboam II, king of Israel. In the 15th year of Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria, and he reigned 41 years. Tama na dyan ko at malapit na tayong huminto. He did evil. Malapit na kasi oras kasi. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did not turn away from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He was the one who restored the boundaries of Israel from Lebo Hamath to the sea of the Arabah, in accordance with the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, spoken through his servant Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath-hepher. May mga boundaries na. Pero maganda pa rin yung ba't kaya bawat country na may mga boundaries? Marami kasi talagang sana yung mga bansa na may sarili na tayong lupa, wag na makipaghira para angkinin yung mga kalupaan ng iba. Para masaya. Para walang gulo. Kasi ito, kaya sila nagigira-gira para maka ng mga iba plunder nila, kukuhanin nila yung mga kayamanan doon sa bansa na yun. Ganon sila. Gath-hepher 26. The Lord had seen how bitterly everyone in Israel, whether slave or free, was suffering. There was no one to help them, and since the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, the son of Jehoash. As for the other events, Jeroboam's reign, all did, and his military achievements, including how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which had belonged to Yahweh. Are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jeroboam rested with his fathers, the kings of Israel, and Zechariah, his son, succeeded him as king. Kasi kung sino pala yung mga anak mo nung araw, yun ang magsasucceed talaga. as king. And Zechariah, his son, succeeded him as king. So, yun lang guys. Bye everyone. God bless.